Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for joining. This is our second shiur in Chayei Moharan. We're continuing on in the intro from Reb Nosson. This is the Hakdama that Reb Nosson wrote himself, giving a bit of a backstory behind the sefer itself. Last week, we learnt in the Hakdama a little bit of the praise that Reb Nosson had for Rebbe Nachman and the inspiration that he received and some of the impact on Reb Nosson that Reb Nachman had on him, and some of the background into why he felt he needed to write and record Reb Nachman's teachings. And we're going to get into this a little bit more today. So if you have the Sefer Chayei Moharan, we're in the Hakdama with the paragraph begins V'hine im amnam, and we're by the words that say aval b'tchila. If you're in the English version, Tzaddik by the Breslev Research Institute, we're on page 23. The paragraph begins with at first, and we're by the words but from the time. So here we go. But first, if you have any questions throughout the shiur, feel free to either ask us here live on Instagram, or if you're not watching live and you're watching the recording on YouTube, you can ask in the comments below or DM us on Instagram with your questions, and we'll do our best to answer them in the next shiur. As a reminder, these shiurim are in memory of my maternal grandparents, Menachem ben Dovid Zvi and Illana bas Sarah. So, okay, without further ado, let's get started with this evening's shiur. Says Reb Nosson, Aval b'tchila loy nizharti adayin lichtoiv kol hasichos hakadoshois v'hadiburim hakadoshim shiyasu mipei v'kadosh. Says Reb Nosson, he wasn't so careful to write down the conversations that were happening and coming from the holy mouth of Rabbeinu. Ki ma shehaya bahem eze hemshech isgalus chidushi Torah, only the Torah-related teachings that the Rebbe was giving, that's what he was writing down. The other writings coming from the Rebbe, he wasn't careful to write down. Initially, when I was learning this, preparing for the shiur, I found this slightly complicated or a little bit hard to grasp. But after some personal reflection, I think this makes perfect sense. And I think Reb Nosson here is defining a very natural human experience. When we go through a moment of inspiration in our lives, whenever that may be, initially, it may be that this is something we want to experience or something that we need to experience personally. So therefore, we're going to go through this moment and internalize everything that we are experiencing. But I'm sure we've all been to those moments where it's highly inspiring. And not only is it affecting your personal life, but then also you realize, wow, there's other people that I know that could benefit from this. And all you want to do is try to figure out, okay, how can I capture this? How can I record it, video it? What can I remember of this event that I'm going through that I can share with other people that I know could benefit? And very often, it's very hard to compress such a powerful spiritual experience into something or some sort of medium. And I'm sure we've all been through something like that. I know I myself have been something like that. So we can imagine what Reb Nosson is going through, where he's been working his entire life to try and find this Rebbe, this mentor, someone who can guide him in his spirituality, who hasn't been able to guide him up until this point. And then he finally meets Rebbe Nachman, and he has this amazing spiritual experience. He finally has found a Rebbe. And to be able to capture what the Rebbe is saying, I'm sure he recorded those initial teachings because those are the ones he felt were either most impactful for him. But then the more he learned more about the Rebbe, the more he realized, wow, I really need to share this not only for myself, but with other people. So I'm sure we've all been through those moments, and that's sort of how I've grasped what Reb Nosson experienced must have been here in my own way. So I'm sure it's a lot more lofty than that, but that's how I've come to terms with what Reb Nosson has just written here. Continuing on in the sefer, uve'emes lemin hayoim asher eschalti lahakir hetiv amitas niskavais malasai ukdishasai haneira hayisi omer tamin shiroi hayashiyamin echad shiyichtav kal dibur v'dibur shiyatz mipiva kadesh b'kedusha u'v'tahara. And here, this is what Rebbe Nosson is saying. In the beginning, I recognized immediately the awesome, holy level of the Rebbe. And I recognized that there needs to be someone suitable who can stand up and lead and record all the teachings that are coming from the mouth of the Rebbe. The whole minei chen shel emes, all the favor of the truth, v'yira naras be'eres kalapid eish, and the words that were sparkling with like sparks of fire. V'kol afilu kol hadiburim b'milei da'alma v'tzarchei adam v'chol davar of kulim ru'in lihikasev. So here he's saying that he immediately recognized that even the most not I would say mundane in terms of like the Rebbe's experience, but even regular daily conversations, needs of man, worldly things that was coming out of the mouth of the Rebbe, here Reb Nosson saying even those he realized needed to be written, and if he wasn't going to write them down, someone needed to be fitting enough to be able to record that. And he knew immediately that this needed to be done. And I think this is a great lesson in leadership. Sometimes you realize that there's a gap where someone should stand up, take care of something. Very similar to what word this is applicable to this week's Parsha, Parshas Beshalach. It's amazing. So Nachshon ben Aminadav immediately realized that the sea's not going to split. Someone needs to go out, do something, take care of the situation, be a leader. And this is where Reb Nosson is realizing in his experience here that someone needs to stand up, record this, otherwise these teachings would chas v'shalom be lost. That's not exactly what he's saying in the words, but this is what we can imply from what he's saying here, that these experiences need to be recorded. Even the worldly matters. So either he's saying here, there are firebrand streams from his mouth, fiery sparks escape. That even these worldly matters that Rebbe Nachman was discussing, even these needed to be recorded. Achra isi shehu davar shi efshar umachmazeh nisrashalti v'loy nishtadalti. So you're saying, but he realized how impossible it was. It's such a daunting task. And therefore, from that, his own resolve began to wane. And we're going to see here in a minute a very important breslev concept playing out right before our eyes, and I'll explain that in a moment. So he's saying, "Zenis alti v'loinish dadalti lichtoiv afilu kama divrei chachma amitius shenishma b'dibura v'ktoishim v'loy kasafti ki'in k'sheshamati eza hemshech divrei Torah or shahaya shayach le'eza Torah." So here he's saying that the only parts of Torah that he was writing at that time that he could manage to write down were the parts of Torah the parts that related to some sort of more formal conversation. And unfortunately, his resolve became weakened, and he didn't always make the effort to write those Torahs. And here I want to explain a very important concept in Breslev, a very important concept that Rebbe Nachman teaches in Chayei Moharan, lesson 6. Rebbe Nachman explains there that a person needs two abilities to serve Hashem properly. There's the ability to run, which is referred to as ratzah, and there's the ability to return, which is referred to as shoiv. Ratzah literally means to run forward. Shoiv literally means to return. Here we're going to describe it as either returning or holding on. So when a person feels very inspired, he's connected to Hashem, he's on fire, things are going amazing in his avodah and his spirituality, this is known as a time for growth. It's a time for learning. It's a time of connection. And he feels like he's so close to Hashem. But even in these moments, a person shouldn't become complacent and think, I've arrived, I'm good, this is where I need to be, we're not going any further, we're not going down, this is exactly where we are. So no matter how high you reach, Hashem's always beyond you, and Hashem's calling out to us to keep on striving. But we need to know, and I'm sure we all know from our own personal experiences, these moments, they don't last. Unfortunately, as much as we'd really like them to do, where we're running, we're growing, we go through other moments, and those moments are called the shoiv moments. These are the moments of returning, but also moments of holding on. And these are the moments where our inspiration has waned. We feel there's a feeling of distance, and we feel like we're pulling backwards or falling, chas v'shalom, in our growth. But during these moments, we have to hold on, keep strong, remember our learning, remember halacha, and remember how we're supposed to live as a yid, and know that Hashem is with us in those low moments just as much as he's in those moments of extreme spirituality, connection, and fire. So in those lower moments, we need to keep that in mind and help us to guide us in the shoiv moments. And eventually, the opportunity to ratzah, to run, to go forward, is going to come again by not waiting that out, but to keep doing what we're supposed to be doing, knowing that the inspiration's coming. So applying this to what Reb Nosson is teaching here, I found this concept in his exact writings. And in these 4 words, Azeh nisrashalti, veloy nishtadalti. My resolve became weakened, and I didn't always make the effort to record his teachings. Saw before, he was on a high. He immediately connected to Rebbe Nachman, and he's learning, and he's there during the holiest moments of the year by the Rebbe, and he was only recording the more lofty or formal conversations in Torahs, and not the more worldly conversations or conversations referring to tzarchei adam, the needs of man, but he was recording the lessons that were related to more formal Torah topics. But that's the Ratzah point. But he also went through those shoiv points, those points where it requires returning, those lower moments where you don't feel as inspired. So seeing Reb Nosson even go through those moments it's easier to apply. Okay, we can also go through those moments. Although his Ratzah v'shoiv must have been on a much higher level than us, still we can see that playing out in Reb Nosson's life, and we're going to see the shoiv and Ratzah play out a little bit more in a second. Anachar kama shanim lihis karvusi elav. After a couple of years that I was already connected to the Rebbe, Heir Hashem libi. Hashem ignited my soul. He aroused my heart. Lahaskil lirshoim gam kama sichos benyanim asher nishmu mipipa kodesh oz. Then I began to record several conversations, ideas, inyanim that I had heard from the Rebbe's holy mouth, uktsas, mashinish makfar, even things that I had already heard previously, I began to record. Gam reshamti kama sipurim ve'inyanim me'asher avar, things that had happened in the past, avar al alav al anashav, to me, but also to the other chassidim and other people. Mi'at sipuri giyasai v'tirchasai asher torah fayaga b'avodas Hashem asher al yedei zeh zacha l'masha zacha. Even the struggles and the trials that Rebbe Nachman had gone through in his own avodas Hashem until he merited to the level which he reached. Rebbe Nosson was even able to record those. The Seder Nesiyasa Eretz Yisrael and his journey to Eretz Yisrael. And we're gonna see that later in the sefer. A beautiful, beautiful, inspiring trials, tribulation, complication-filled story of the Rebbe's trip to Eretz Yisrael. The Kama Sipurim Umansiyo Shahayu Eitzel Kol Torah v'Torah Eitzel Kol Sipur Maisa. Even the stories and the tales and the stories related to the Torahs that were given, each one has its tale as a story. Even those Rebbe Nosson was able to record. Ve'eich va'al yadei manis galgalu rachamav ad shepesach piv hakodesh v'gila mashagila. And the chain of events that caused Hashem's mercy to be aroused to the point that he opened his holy lips and revealed what he revealed. So now we continue on, but we realize that there's another case of shoiv happening here. So we just experienced a ratzah, a high point of extreme inspiration. Hashem was with Rebbe Nosson in that high moment, and he helped him to write all these amazing stories and tales and conversations, even from the past, from those initial years of Reb Nosson's time by Rebbe Nachman. Right before that, he experienced a bit of a ratzah where he didn't record anything but the main teachings. And now we're experiencing another shoiv, another, not a setback, but a level where you need to understand where you're holding, know Hashem's with you, and know that there's going to be another step even higher than the one before. And here Reb Nosson says, "Be'im amnam b'chol eleh, hi efshar levayer litzayer b'ksav mahusa inyan hetev kasher haya b'shas masa." So now Reb Nosson's saying that to be able to describe the essence of what was happening in those moments of being by Reb Nosson, it was impossible to fully condense that. And I'm sure we've all had those moments, like we mentioned earlier, where either you've gone through an incredible experience, or you've heard an amazing shiur, or you've been to an incredible concert, and no matter what you photograph, you video, it's, yeah, you can use the phrase HTBT. It's impossible to fully capture that experience unless you just had to be there. So I'm sure, on a spiritual sense, this must have been what Rebbe Nosson was going through. And I don't think we can use the word HTBT, but he's saying here that to be able to capture the full essence of what was happening in those moments by Rebbe Nachman, it was very, very difficult to be able to capture that down. Im kol zeh, but nevertheless, loy manati prieti milichtoi v'lirshoim kol ma she'ev shelirshoim. So here, this is how you get out of those shoiv moments. You don't stop, you keep on going. And here Reb Nosson says, I did not refrain from writing what I could write and record in those moments that felt difficult to do so. V'hamaskel yavi midatoi me'at mehusa inyan. And he who understands from his own knowledge of having been in these moments will understand that. Okay. So, kulei hai v'ulei. Yizku hadaris habayim leda es kol hagdoilis vaniflois asher asa imanu adoin hakol. Now this right here is for us. This is for our generation. Says Reb Nosson, perhaps, maybe the future generations will know, and I would like to say to benefit, all the great wonders that Hashem did for us by connecting us to the Rebbe. Hanoiheg bechasted kol dor, led us with great kindness in the generation. Asher machshavois liboy ledor vador, Hashem who knows all the thoughts of every generation. Asher oisei chadashois bechol eis leman saper shmoi bechol haaretz. For those who, it's for Hashem, sorry, who creates future generations, great new generations, that we have the ability to tell over Hashem's great name in the world. L'man yisayru b'chol dar lashuv elav yisbarach, to return to Hashem. Ki kvar pina lifanenu derech nachon al yadei zal. And here he's saying this is what Rebbe Nachman was able to do. Rebbe Nachman was able to carve a straight path to be able to connect to Hashem. And anyone who's learned any sort of breslev books or lessons, or you've gone to several shiurim or Chayei Moharan, or you've learned it yourself, will know that path, or will have some sort of understanding of what Rebbe Nachman is able to do, and it has somehow enhanced your connection to Hashem. And Rebbe Nachman created this path thanks to Hashem's help. Asher me'ata kol haroitz lageshes ala kodesh. Anyone wants to draw to any holiness, bekal yuchal yiskarev elav yisparach al pi hadrachim hakdoshim uvarim b'sefarim hakdoshim. It's easier now to be able to connect to Hashem by the holy paths that are explained in the holy sefarim. Ashrei sheyoches behem. Praiseworthy is he who can hold on to them. And here, Reb Nosson quotes the famous Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, which is Perek Hey Mishnah Chaf Beis, Ben Bagbog Omer Hafachbam, he's paraphrased it, Hafachbam, Hafachbam Vesipuk Levab, Omehem Loy Tazua, She'en Lechamida Toiva Mehem. Turn them over and turn them over again and again. Contemplate them and wax gray all over and over and stir from them, for you can have no better rule than this. And here's another important point. This is something I was thinking about for my own personal spiritual purpose, but I'm sure we can also derive something from this as well. That although the Rebbe carved a path that's easier to connect to Hashem, it doesn't come without any work or application or practice. We still have to put in the work ourselves. But here, thanks to Reb Nosson's help, recording all the Rebbe's teachings and having everything recorded and written down, that path is also cleared for us to be able to apply all of Rabbi Nachman's wisdom. And I think this is what Reb Nosson is getting to in what he's written so far and what we've learned this evening. Hein kol eila ra'asa einai. All this, Reb Nosson says, I saw with my own eyes. Ki hu ritzoni es baruch lirshayim hakol al hasefer. Because Hashem has helped me to be able to record this all in the sefer. Al kein zeh yomim asher samti el libi bazeh lichtoi v'lirshayim kol sicha v'dibur v'inyan v'sipor shiala al zichroina. Because all the time that I dedicated my heart to be able to record every sifa, every conversation, every teaching, and talk that the Rebbe gave, or story even, that I remembered I was able to record down. All these are recorded in this sefer. Now this is where we're gonna stop for this week, but there was one more thing from the Mishnah Pirkei Avos that we just mentioned from Beg Babag that I saw a little bit earlier this evening that I just wanted to share. I thought it was a very powerful lesson that Rebbe Nachman gave to Reb Nosson himself. So one of the tasks that Rebbe Nachman gave Reb Nosson, and he gave him many, many tasks, many things to accomplish, little missions for him to grow in his spirituality. And one of them was to start learning Pri Etz Chaim from Reb Chaim Vital. And Reb Nosson set time in his very, very busy day to be able to accomplish this. And one of the things I was even thinking about is, like, it's amazing that in Reb Nosson's day-to-day life, through all, he was constantly traveling. He wasn't around Rebbe Nachman the entire year. He would work. He would record Rebbe Nachman's lessons. He even started recording his own ideas based on Rebbe Nachman's teachings, and he was writing letters. There was so much that he was doing in his day. It's amazing how much one can really accomplish when you fully set your time aside. But anyway, I get back to my point. So one of the things Rebbe Nachman told him was to start learning Pri Etz Chaim from Reb Chaim Vital. And he set aside time to start doing that. And he came back to the Rebbe and said that as he was learning Reb Chaim Vital and Pri Etz Chaim, there were a lot of concepts that for him were going over his head that weren't completely making sense, and ideas that he couldn't fully grasp. So Rebbe Nachman told him, keep going. Rebbe Nachman was very into learning Bikias, covering ground in learning. So he told him, keep on learning, and any point that you don't fully understand, mark it down in the sefer, keep going, and then tell me what happens. So Reb Nosson did that, and after going through the sefer several times, he told Rebbe Nachman that each time he went through the sefer, there were more things that he could remove the marks that he had made from his previous lack of knowledge. And then each time he understood it, there were more and more things that he could remove the marks from because he was understanding more in his learning. So this is something I think we can also apply to our own teachings, that if there's things that we're learning and we're striving for and they're not making sense, that not to pass over it, but to go through it, try to understand it. If we're not fully grasping it, make a mark, or a mental mark if it's not a physical book or physical sefer or activity, and then come back to it the next time round as we're going through our revisions in Chazar. So those were some ideas that stood out to me from this Hakdama. So we've got a little bit ways to go. We're almost, I would say we're just over the halfway point. So we're almost at the first teaching of Chayei Moharan, which is very, very exciting. And next week, we're going to learn from Reb Nosson himself why he chose the title Chayei Moharan. And that's going to be right in the beginning of next week's lesson. So we're very, very excited to learn that part with you all. So thank you to everybody who joined live tonight. Thank you to all who are watching this recording. Really appreciate it. If you're looking for more of our shiurim, we're at Breslev Burns a Fire on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, all your major social media platforms. So check us out, subscribe, like. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out. And we thank you all. And Menachem, we will see you next week. Take care, everybody.